Hey guys, welcome to Tea Time. This is Brian from Magic Links, and today we are joined by Jessica Jade of Sunkissed Organics. So just give me a few and I will let her in.
Hi, everyone.
You okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I'm having some crazy connection issues today.
It's okay.
Well, welcome, Jessica. Welcome to Tea
Thank
Time. We're so
you.
excited to have you. Did you get your tea okay?
I sure did.
Hey, okay, there we go. We got a nice matcha. I love it. You're in New York though, right? So how's the weather? How's the weather in New York?
It's 70 degrees, so it's a little cool, but it's perfect. It's like my favorite weather right now.
Morning type of feeling? Are we getting there? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it feels good. It feels good. Like I can wear a sweater. I'm totally a fall type of girl, so I've been really happy with the weather.
Yeah, well, Jessica, we would love to start off with you just introducing yourself to everyone and letting them know who you are and a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Jessica Jade, and I'm a skin coach, and I'm also the founder of Sunkissed Organics. And a lot of the work that I do revolves around empowering women of color, not only to heal their skin, but to also, practice self-love, practice self-care. And my focus is usually women of color because of all the things that a lot of us are starting to learn and to grasp in society right now. So that's a little bit about me and what I do, and of course we'll expand more as the conversation goes.
And also today, I wanted to let everyone know that we are doing a fundraiser for the Period Movement, Jessica's organization of choice. So we actually made the donation on the other stream, and then it got cut off. So we did do the
Right.
$500. It's there. We promise we'll share the receipts with everyone. But please, yeah, we started with the $500 and encourage anyone to donate as well. Jessica, could you explain to us why you chose that nonprofit?
Well, yeah. So, as I mentioned, empowering women of color in any way, shape, or form is everything to me. And the period movement does an amazing job at helping women who are at risk and low income to get pads and tampons, which to many people might not seem like a need. It might seem like a privilege almost, but it really is something that women, especially now during COVID season, have really been struggling to obtain because of finances and the economy and how much they're all struggling. So I just love the work that they've been doing in general. But now that the COVID has struck and has really taken us all by storm, they've really upped the ante and have been helping a lot of women and a lot of girls.
Absolutely. That's such a real issue. I actually remember I don't think it was this year, maybe last year that Beyonce did a full no, actually maybe it was. Was it the hurricane? It was something in Texas. And basically she was doing a full donation drive for tampons and pads at like local places throughout Houston. And so, like I think that when you think about the poorest groups of people, you always forget about basic human needs like that. Like that's such a universal thing amongst all women, of course. Tell us a little bit about your community and sort of, your background and what you're seeing going on the streets. You're not in Queens. Where are you at in New
I'm in
York?
Harlem right now,
You're in
but I'm
Harlem.
from the
Okay.
Bronx. I just have to
You're from the
specify
Bronx,
that.
right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we'll get it right. I'm from West Coast, so I like have a hard time keeping my hood straight from from that side. So tell me, okay, so tell me about what you're seeing in Harlem. Like what's the vibe like? What are you seeing?
So, I mean, right now with quarantine and just as everyone knows, New York City was hit really, really hard. It was almost like the epicenter of quarantine and of COVID. And I've seen it's really sad actually. A lot of businesses and a lot of mom and pop shops have closed. You see a lot of homelessness, and it's really devastating. It's really devastating what this illness has done to our community. Every day I get a little bit more hope though, because as New Yorkers, we're very, very resilient. And every day you see things go a little bit more to normalcy. And I think it has to do with the fact that we became very tough to try to beat COVID as much as possible. And so every day you see a little bit of improvement, more people on the subway, more people riding their bikes. Everyone is wearing masks. Most people wear masks. The subway, the MTA is even providing masks and hand sanitizers to people who don't have it. So it feels like we really unified, and we've been doing everything that we can to uplift one another.
I know that when you and I had chatted earlier, you'd spoken to me a little bit about how much community means to you, and you have mentioned already throughout this session about really the your community and what how important it is for you, especially for women of color, that you sort of unify that group. Um, so tell me, I guess like I want to learn a little bit more from you in terms of where that passion sparks from, aside from the fact that you're in that group, of course. But like what else, like where does the motivation come from that you took that and then you actually turned that into a business to help individuals like yourself?
So yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm Latina, but I'm an Afro-Latina. My family's Black, and I being in this community and being a part of this community, it made it very evident to me that the women in our group were either being completely excluded from, for example, like the media, Hollywood, campaigns. Like I feel like you and I talked about this the last time, but when I go travel to other Spanish speaking countries and I speak Spanish to them, everyone's like shocked, right? They're like, whoa, like, how did you learn Spanish so well? And I'm like, I'm Dominican and Puerto Rican. I've been speaking Spanish was my first language, right? And I think that it's in the Latino community, there's this erasure almost that happens. And I don't say that necessarily to place blame on anyone, but it is something that does happen amongst Latinos. And so for me, it was very important to make sure that any work that I do supports women of color, Black Latinas, Black women in general, because there's a need. There's a need for platforms that cater to us and that represent us, that put us on the forefront. We're not just an afterthought. So I am very grateful for you to, to have put Tea Time together, based off of the suggestion of someone in your community, because it is an important thing to do, to put women of color at the forefront, listen to them, learn from them, and try to, create more diverse and inclusive businesses.
And that's a huge focus of us for why we're doing Tea Time. It's really has evolved from something that started on the forefront of Black Lives Matter, and we still are to this day very flagrantly passionate about making systemic change in our industry, but also realizing that to the extension of that, there's a lot of stories that need to be told. Stories like yours, groups of people where you're, even within your community, you're saying that you're almost just overlooked because of your Hispanic heritage within the Black community, or maybe vice versa. Tell us a little bit about what it's like living in that intersection where you're biracial, and like I feel like I have a lot of friends that sort of deal with this, and so I'm curious like what your experience has been like, and if there's one particular community, the Black community or the Hispanic community, that you feel like you sort of like resonate more with, or what's it like?
You see, I get that question often, and there isn't one, and I think it is one community. A lot of Latinos are Black. A lot of Latinos are Afro descendants. And there's this misconception that it's two separate identities, and it isn't. My light-skinned family from the Dominican Republic does the same thing that my dark family does in the Dominican Republic. It's one culture. It's one identity. And there isn't one that I identify more with, actually. And I'm very proud of that. I think we have such a vibrant culture, and if we were to really like identify certain dances, certain foods that we eat, certain words that we use and colloquialisms, we'll realize that they're actually rooted in the African diaspora. And a lot of Latin America, like I said, and it's due to colonialism, right? It's been whitewashed. Our cultures, our food, our spices, like all of that is something that does come from the African diaspora. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, and that I just love to remind people of, like, yes, like we're here. Hello.
And that, first of all, great response, because, I hate the idea that you have to sort of like pick a side, or it's like, you can only maybe resonate with one side or the other. How do you see attitudes changing over time, generationally? Because I know we talked about this too. Your grandparents aren't on the same page exactly. So how do you feel like, with your generation and then moving forward, that this is becoming more of a enlightened group of people that see their full community as one people versus, I guess, like split up?
Right. So I think it has to do a lot with generational trauma. And this isn't something that most people in the Black community, Latin community, talk about in general. They don't talk about generational trauma. And that's precisely what colonialism has done to Latin American countries, Caribbean countries all over the world, even Asian countries. It's not just us, right? So when you have this colorism that's steeped in white supremacy, it almost makes the people in those countries compelled to want to abide by and uphold Eurocentric beauty standards, right? So that's one of the easiest ways that I can talk about it because it's very apparent. The color of our complexion, right? And, the people that we do see represented in the media. And I think particularly women were constantly told that our value lies within our appearance and our beauty, and that somehow we have to attain and conform to Eurocentric beauty standards. And so I see it so often. Like I mentioned before, I'm a skin coach and I'm also a skincare artisan. So I speak to a lot of women, in Latin American women, Caribbean women, African American women, and again and again and again, I hear these stories of women who feel like they have to look a certain way. And I'll give you a short example. One day I was DM'd by a woman in the Caribbean, and she asked me if my bright face trio would brighten her skin. And I'm like, well, yes, of course it'll brighten your skin. Like, it says it in the title, you know what I mean? Like, that's what it's for. And she said, no, no, no. And when we got to the root of it, I realized that she was asking me for a bleaching product. So, being the person that I am, I asked her if she wanted a free consultation, because I'm like, we need to dig into this. Like, I need to talk more to this woman. I can't give her like a simple, basic answer via DM, because that's not going to be enough. And when we spoke, it was almost like triggering, because she talked a lot about how people in her society and in her family told her that if she was lighter skinned, she would be married and she would find a partner. And, essentially, like, you will be happy if you are lighter. And this isn't something that I blame our people for in any way, because it's something that we have to, over the generations, cope with, intellectualize, understand, and learn from. And so, even in my own family, I mean, I've personally been very fortunate. I'm the darkest person on my mom's side of the family and the lightest person on my dad's side of the family. So I'm in like a very interesting position on both sides of the family, right? And my blackness has always been celebrated on both sides, right? But that's not always the case. That's my individual story. But that's not always the case for other women who are darker than me, and other women who more like outwardly appear Black, right? So I like to keep that in mind, because I understand how difficult it is to navigate society and our community when we believe one thing and yet we're something else, right? And so I've seen that a lot of people in my generation, millennials, Gen Zers, people who are younger, they're really, embracing their Afro descendants, their Blackness, their negritude. They're embracing that. And I find it to be completely beautiful, because they're challenging these beliefs that we're not Black, that we're not African, with people in their family. They're having all kinds of conversations that might be very uncomfortable, but I'm here for all of it, because I think that the more that we learn, the more that we grow as a community, the more that we uphold each other and the truths in our community, the better we'll be, the stronger we'll be.
For sure. And I think, I definitely have a lot of hope for the younger generations to come, that we'll see a lot more of this, and attitudes really shifting to celebrating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, actually, I want to sort of talk a little bit more, though, about Sunkist Organics, and how you took all of this and how this sort of transformed into now your full life. This is what you do all day long. So I'd love to hear about how these products are, especially formulated for women of color. This is not an ad plug. I'm actually just curious. We'll drop a link somewhere, but yeah, no, I mean, seriously, I think it's incredible what you're doing. We love to support any sort of minority owned business. It's just something that we see a huge need for. At Magic Links, we work with massive brands, and we have such a diverse group of influencers that we work with as well. And we kind of see it as our responsibility to connect these people with large platforms to brands like yours, where there is more inclusion happening, there is more thought going into the products and the formulations. And so I'll turn it over to you to tell us more.
I really love that you're doing that over there at Magic Links. I think it's so important. And if you ask me, one of the best ways to uplift people in your own community is to put them in positions where they wouldn't normally have access. I wouldn't normally have access to speak on the IG live of Magic Links, you know? Talk about them in rooms where they're not there. That's one of the best ways that you can help support, you know, especially women of color, businesses of color. We have the hardest time finding investors, the hardest time getting grants. And so it's absolutely crucial to do that. So thank you. I just wanted to say that before I forgot and got into Sunkist, but I do want to acknowledge that because it's really important to do that when you are in a position of power and you have certain privileges for because of what you do or your work or your title or whatever. It is really important to do that. So thank you. And in terms of Sunkist, so Sunkist started because I feel like I woke up overnight one day and I just had more than 50% of my body covered in eczema. It was awful. It was really, really terrible. And, you know, my confidence just went to hell. I was miserable. I stopped dating. I stopped looking people in the eye, and I'm a very confident person. So that was a big deal. I was just like, I really wasn't myself, for about 6 months. And one day I was on the phone with my great grandma and I was basically just complaining about how miserable I was. And she was like, I can help you. Like, I know exactly what you could put on your skin. And I'm like, how does this woman know this? Like, she doesn't know how to use the internet. She doesn't have Google. Like, and to my surprise, it was like this generational learning that I had no idea existed. And I think that happens in a lot of families and cultures. We forget what we already know and have to relearn it the hard way. But she gave me so many tips on different ingredients that I could use, like shea butter to lock in moisture and, you know, honey because it's antibacterial and all these amazing ingredients. And within 3 to 6 months, I had cleared up my eczema. So that was what planted the seed, right? And I always like to say that because Sunkist is rooted in tradition. It's not just any skincare line. It was made for me to help myself. And so I know it works because of that, right? And once I did start it and I started making products for families and friends, I realized that this was a need in our community. Like, we weren't being represented in the mid to high end skincare industry at all. Like, there weren't any products, right? There weren't any products for us. If anything, we were an afterthought, right? Like, they would make, you know, 5 shades of a foundation, and then they would be like, oh, we're working on making the other 15 darker shades. And then they would name it like chocolate and like, I don't know, caramel or something that made me feel objectified and like a piece of food. I'm like, all right, that's cool. So I realized very quickly that, you know, it was important to not create products to brand to women of color without bringing them into the forefront, right? So when products are being formulated at Sunkist, whenever we're doing any research, we go straight to the source. We go to women of color. We ask them what they need. What do you want? What do you need? What skin concerns are you having right now? And then we take their melanin into consideration when making the products, right? We have them test the products. We have them give us feedback on the products. We bring existing customers and clients back into the fold to get their testimonies, to do marketing promotions and videos. Any pictures that you see on my social media of women, those women use Sunkist. Even if it's like a formal photo shoot, I pay my customers to come do photo shoots for me because that's how valuable and invaluable their support and their business is. It's for them. So why shouldn't they be involved in every process, every step of the process?
And that's so important, right? Because you're making decisions for people, and you're doing it with their actual feedback in mind. Like, that's just the way you got to do things. I'm curious, can you tell us a few of the unique skin concerns that have sort of like emerged that you've created products for based off of all that feedback?
Yeah, so eczema was definitely one of them. A lot of women suffer from eczema in our community, and it's not really talked about as much. This is actually something that I've been doing a lot more research on recently. Dermatologists, when they're taught and trained in school, they're usually taught to spot diseases on white skin. They're not taught to spot
Recently,
diseases.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not taught to spot diseases on people of color. And so they show up on our skin very differently. Eczema, even certain cancers look very different on us than they do on white people. And because of the lack of education and training on their part, it makes it that much more difficult for us to spot certain ailments. So that's one of them. Another one is like hyperpigmentation. A lot of women come to me for hyperpigmentation and dark spots. And it's important to understand melanated skin when you're formulating products for people who have dark skin or have dark spots on their skin, because certain ingredients will lighten their skin in a way that they don't necessarily want. Like they just want to get rid of the spot, but then they're being prescribed products that are completely whitening like their neck and their face. So that's a huge issue as well in our community. So I'm currently formulating a new product specifically to target dark spots and hyperpigmentation because of the feedback I've been getting from women of color who use my products.
Tell me more about the organics piece, because you had mentioned honey, shea, like a lot of natural ingredients. So can you give us a little bit of insight into your philosophy of using organics?
Yeah. So again, this goes back goes back to the fact that I'm making products for women of color. I Organics, for example, my grandmother had all of these herbs and ingredients that she thought I should use, right? This is generations of information that she had. She wasn't like, oh, clean beauty, I just learned about this, let me use this. A lot of the clean beauty movement is right. So a lot of the clean beauty movement is stemmed from like, you know, European women and white women colonizing these practices that we've already created and formulated, and then rebranding and packaging them and selling them back to us at a much higher price, right? And that's capitalism, so I understand, but it's a huge issue. And my biggest grievance with this is the fact that the brands that do market to women of color, Black women and Latinas, are like, I'm not going to name them because I don't want any problems, but they're the type of brands that use really toxic ingredients. So Black women and Latinas are more likely to be marketed terrible products that are not going to do what they say they're going to do, that's actually going to harm their skin or aggravate pre-existing conditions, and that are going to pump them full of toxic ingredients that are going to later on in life cause illnesses that could have been prevented, cancers that could have been prevented, right? So for me, using organic, non-toxic ingredients is like one of my top priorities because I want to make sure that I can fall asleep at night. I don't want to sell you a product that I know is going to harm you when you're my community, you're my people. I can't do that. So for me, if it costs me more money to make certain products and to source certain ingredients to make sure that they're healthy and that the people that they're being given to are going to see results and be healthy long term, that's okay with me. I can deal with that. That's why it's so important.
No, I mean, you raise a lot of good points there, especially with how we consider marketing and what is marketed to minority groups, right? Like we've had this conversation a lot at Magic Links in terms of what that entire structure looks like, and and then we take it to a step further of then who are we even connecting with these brands in the first place, and are we perpetuating a cycle? And so, there's certainly a lot there to kind of dig into. I'm curious. So, I mean, that's, first of all, that's all incredible. I love how thoughtful your entire process is in going to your own skincare line. That is so bomb. How long have you been doing this, by the way?
A decade. 10 years. And I
10
started
years.
selling,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And I started selling Sunkist, the brand. I created the brand literally overnight. I was like, I'm going to make these products and I'm going to sell them to people and they're going to love it. In February of 2016, I literally, boyfriend was, and he's like, what are you talking? And I'm like, I'm going to make a skincare brand. And he's like, okay, baby, you do that. Go ahead. And he went to sleep. And by the time he'd woken up, I'd applied for an LLC. I had the name. I had the products that I was thinking about making and the people that I was going to reach out to see if it was something that they were interested in. I did a lot of work in like 6 hours.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that, first of all, that's a testament in itself. We love shouting out girl bosses, and so you're definitely giving us all that kind of energy. So shout out to you. I mean, we really do need to see more women like you carving the path for more to come. I think like what you're doing is so important, and we've touched on this with a few of our other tea time speakers, but you are making what was before oral tradition, things that you're saying that you learned from your grandma are now something that's like a staple. You can find that on the internet. You know, it's no longer something that's just passed by word of mouth. And although
Right.
there's something beautiful about that oral tradition, I think it's so important, right, that thinking about capitalism and about everything that's marketed to you, to know that you're keeping those stories alive and those formulas and things that really do work and that you know are just like homegrown. I swear, I mean, I'm Hispanic. I get it. I think it's just like, I know when my grandma gives me something, it's just like, this is going to work. I don't care what's in it. Maybe you do. It's like skin's a little different, right? But like, that's just the way that it goes. And so that's such a beautiful thing to really work towards. So one last question, Jessica. We like to ask this to everyone at the very end of our sessions, but knowing everything that you've done and being in this business for 10 years, what's the advice that you would give someone that's sort of just starting out, that maybe wants to launch their own skincare line, that's looking to get into the business of beauty, and that was in your shoes?
Yeah, so I would say that there's beauty and magic in being naive about how much work sometimes it takes to like create a business from the ground up. And I say that because a lot of, newer entrepreneurs come to me with, a lot of fears around creating something, whether it's something in a product or a service or whatever it might be. There's a lot of fear around, starting something new and starting something fresh. But I genuinely believe that you would never get this idea if you didn't have what it takes to bring it to life. So regardless of whatever fears you might be experiencing, whatever doubts, whatever imposter syndrome you might currently be experiencing, go for it anyway. Find the money to do it. It's out there. There's a lot of money out there. You don't need to be a total expert in whatever it is that you're trying to do. You can find partners who have that expertise. And work hard. Sweat equity really does mean something. You have to put your money with where your mouth is. No one's going to help you and support your business more than you do. That's on you. So if it's something that you truly believe in and something that you're truly passionate about, do the research, do the work, raise the capital. If it's truly important, you will figure out a way to make it happen. And ask for help, because a lot of people forget to ask for help, and it's okay to ask for help.
Is fantastic advice, and that's so important, right? I think like a lot, knowing that there's this whole new generation of entrepreneurs that are out there listening to this and looking for advice, it's so critical to realize that you just have to take it day by day. Things do not happen overnight. You can't get so lost in the process, right?
Yep.
I want to also thank Steph for connecting us. So Steph is one of the newer members to the Magic Links fam. She is on my team, on the brand sales team, and Steph and Jessica actually went to high school together, right?
We
So
did.
that is so awesome. I love all the connections that we've been able to make. And again, Tea Time has just been a super organic thing where we just are we're talking to our people. We're talking to our community. You know, like people like you are the ones that I'm a second or third degree away from knowing you one-on-one. And now I'm so happy to have met you personally, be it digitally. And, we're happy to continue to extend our network and family. So thank you so much, Jessica. It's been awesome having you on.
I had so much fun talking to you guys. Thank you for inviting me to be on. I really appreciate it. Shout out to you, Steph.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone. Thanks to whoever had donated. And we did again do the $500 donation to period movement for Jessica. So yeah, really excited to support that cause for you as well.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Have
Have
a
a
good
great
one.
evening.